Okay, hello people of EDAM. So far we've been using like pre-existing models and tools, other people's meshes and stuff, and the sculpt tool and things like that. But what do we do in Blender if we want to model something from scratch with a certain level of detail and accuracy that feels a bit more our own? So this tutorial is going to be a bit longer, but I want to just basically do a simple thing from scratch so that you see the entire modeling process and you can become a bit more familiar with yeah the tool and how to do things that are kind of custom for your purposes. So for this exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Nikki's face filter. So a while back, actually before the New Year's break, as you can see, Nikki posted a face filter inspired by the work of Schwartzman, in which she uses these flower petals, rose petals. I'm not sure what flower she used, but it seems like a rose of some kind. Um, so what I'm going to do is try and replicate the shape of a petal in Blender, just one petal, and then that will become a kind of object in itself that you can then import into Lens Studio and apply into a mask in a similar way to what Nikki did here with a physical thing. So hopefully this will show you from beginning to end how to model from scratch from an image, let's say a reference image, how to model something in Blender. So let's just get to it. Um, now this is not something I do every day, so I will probably go the long way around for it. So let's just, well, I already have a default scene, but just so that you see, I'm gonna start. So I clicked on new and I'm gonna start from a default scene. The default scene contains a camera, a cube, and a light, if you remember. I'm going to delete them. Poof, off they go. And then for the next step, what I want to do is I want to change my view to the top. So here I click in view, viewpoint, top, and that changes the perspective here so that we're looking at at the 2D plane with our camera pointing down. Um, right, now we need a reference image because Nikki didn't share with us a picture of a single petal. What I will do is I will just Google for one. This kind of stuff should be relatively easy to find. So let me just, I Googled for rose petal, and actually one of the first images that popped up is from textures.com. And yeah, I have an account already with my spam collection Gmail account. And yeah, I just basically downloaded this image. It's here on my disk. You can do the same yourself. Maybe I just directly post a link in Discord for you if you want to follow this tutorial. But yeah, it's basically just a transparent PNG. Hopefully, it will be transparent. That contains a kind of more or less high-res picture of a shape that we want. And what we're going to do is just import this as a 2D image into Blender and use that as our shape reference. So the way we do that is we go to, I get it from my Finder or my file browser or whatever, and Blender supports drag and drop, so I just basically drop it there, kind of approximately in the center, and boom, that's it. It's now in Blender. As you can see, it's called empty. I can rename these to be reference image. I find that handy. I press F2 to rename something. I'm going to call that ref image. And basically what I will need now is to create geometry, right? That I can then manually adjust to look like this shape. So you create new geometry by saying add, mesh, and in my case, I'm going to add a plane. And as you can see, plane starts by being square of 1 by 1. I'm going to press the letter S to scale it. Then I move my mouse sideways or up and down. And as you can see, this scales the plane that I just created. I'm gonna kind of like adjust it to be approximately the same size as, approximately the same size as my reference image. I mean, this is a very forgiving process. You don't have to get it absolutely, nail it down to the pixel. It's okay. As long as it covers it, we'll be fine. So right now we have a reference image. I can hide the plane so you can see the reference image, and I can reveal the plane again, and then we have a plane that renders on top. Now with the plane alone, if I go into, so I'm now in object mode here, as you can see. If I go to edit mode by pressing tab, edit mode, you can see also how this changes. When we're in edit mode, we see the little dots in the vertices. So if I now select one vertice and I move it, I'm basically just editing the plane, the square that I just added. But we don't have enough geometry to add detail. So if I move these here and try to continue the shape of the petal, we don't have enough geometry. So we have to kind of add more geometry to this thing. The way I do that is I add something called a loop cut. Now, loop cut is used all the time in Blender, all the time. It's one of the basic modeling tools. You can see the loop cut referenced here. And as you can see, the shortcut is Control R, as it says down in the tooltip. I like to use the shortcut better than this button, but you can also use the button. So I'm gonna use the shortcut. This one is a super handy one to have in your keyboard. And as you can see, depending on where I position my cursor, so if I move closer to the top edge, the cut will be vertical, and if I move closer to my side edge, the cut will be horizontal. That might be a bit counterintuitive at the beginning, but actually it makes a lot more sense when you have models that are a bit more complex than these. For now, all I want is a vertical cut, and then if I move my mouse wheel up and down, what you will see is that it changes the number of cuts. You see, up it gives me a lot of detail, a lot of cuts basically, and down gives me fewer cuts. I'm going to reset this tool, so I'm not apply the tool, and I'm going to go here and render wireframe instead, so that you can see these a little better as I add geometry. So again, Control R, I'm repeating the entire operation I did before, but now seeing the shape at the bottom so that you understand a little better what I'm trying to aim at. So over here, I keep adding divisions, loop cuts basically, and as you can see, the more I add, the greater detail it gives me. And the more geometry I have, the easiest it will be to adjust it to the edges. So I want something like this. I don't know how many cuts these are. I lost count already. But yeah, let's keep it somewhere there. All right. And then I can actually move the cuts up and down, but I don't really want this, so I just press escape, and then it will just place them in the default, which is kind of the center. We're still in edit mode. If I press A, it selects everything. If I press A again, double A, sorry, it will select everything. It will deselect everything. Now, if I select one of these again and I move it, as you can see, I can move just that one vertex around. And yeah, it doesn't matter how much I move these, I'm just messing things up because, yeah, I'm not really adjusting it to the shape. I want to be able to move multiple, many of these vertices simultaneously at the same time. And to do that, I can use this thing called proportional editing. Proportional editing is a tool that we find up here in this kind of mysterious round circular shape there. You see, if I kind of hover over, the proportional editing tooltip appears, and you can see this has the shortcut O. We're going to be using that shortcut now. So if I press the letter O in my keyboard, also see here, over here, I have the overlay. So you can see the letters that I press over here as well. So that's O 4 times. Right. If I press O, you will see how this button goes. Well, the more, wait, O, 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 O. Enable, disable, enable, disable. Right, it goes from blue to gray and back to blue as I press O. So when my tool is active, I should be able to see that. And the effect that this has is that the next time I move this, I can move a single vertex. I think I set that by pressing the letter G. And the letter G, you see, G for grab. Whenever I have something selected, if I press the letter G, it grabs it, so I can move it around. But you see now how instead of just moving one, it's moving a few, and the few that is moving are the ones that are inside of this circle. This is the circle of influence of the proportional editing tool. And as I move around, I can change the influence by using my mouse wheel. So here I increase it, and there, forward I decrease it. So I think you see where I'm heading with this. So right now I have this cute little tool. Wait, I chose the wrong proportional editing mode. I forgot to do this one thing. So in proportional editing, the one thing I want to do is maybe change it to sharp instead of smooth. Yeah, you'll see in a moment hopefully why. And then now I want to grab, instead of let's look at the difference actually, so that we understand what this proportional editing tool is doing. So as you can see, when it's sharp, I can move the top and then things kind of gradually move towards it. But if I set it to smooth here, and I do the same thing, I grab that vertex, you can see that it tries to create a curve out of that, and it doesn't quite match the same curvature that I'm trying to do, so I will just pick the other one. I'm moving from one to another without applying it by pressing escape. So over there is just, I choose sharp, and now the next time I grab my vertex and I move it somewhere near, you see, by moving my mouse wheel around, I'm kind of adjusting the shape to be a bit closer to the petal. Same thing here. And so you can see it makes the job of actually adjusting shapes one hell of a lot easier. That's a little better. I think I went a bit extreme there. And then just there, a bit more there, and then just tweak the shape as I go along to more or less match what I have in my reference image. It's a bit of a tedious process when it's the first time that you do it. You somehow wish there was like a magic wand that you could say, hey, take this shape, boom, and that it would take it. But that's not quite how, when you come from code, you get kind of spoiled by the fact that once you do something once, you don't have to do it a million times. But that's not the case with kind of image editing tools. It's kind of annoying, but yeah, well, that's what different tools serve different purposes, right? So we have kind of like more or less our basic shape there. If I now render using the solid view, as you can see, it's an approximation. It doesn't have to be very precise. Maybe if you want, you can do like small adjustments here and there and try and get it a bit closer if you're really into this kind of precision work. I really don't care enough to do that, so I'm kind of happy like that. Another thing that I can do, and that in fact I will do, is I'm going to create more loop cuts in vertical. So I'm going to press R again. That's going to be 1, and actually wait, I'll do this again. So Control R for a loop, and then I'm going to increase the number of cuts, and I'm going to make a few cuts there. There we go. And press escape, and as you can see, that gives us more geometry. We now have all of a sudden these dots up here as well. So I'm going to select these, the ones on top actually, and with proportional editing enabled. Well, actually, you know what? I'm just going to select these two, and with proportional editing, you can press Shift and then select the second one. And with proportional editing, I'm going to grab these two and move them there. And that one, move it here. And you can see it's already kind of beginning to take shape. Whoops. Beginning to take a bit more shape there. If I want more detail, I can also add another loop cut up here. But I don't really care at this stage. It's a very forgiving process. And once, I mean, we have a reference image, so that's what is kind of psychologically driving us to try and follow the reference image. But if we didn't have this reference image, this shape would actually be a perfectly good petal. So I will stop just fucking around with pixels soon, but yeah, I'll just get these adjustments, and I'm quite happy with this. This is all I need. Right, I still have proportional editing enabled. I'm going to hide my reference image, and this is my shape. This is what I have. If I render in solid view, and this kind of looks like a petal, sort of, not really accurate yet, but kind of good enough for our purposes. Right. So now we have to give it a bit of shape, of kind of a rounded concave bowl shape. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come here to this gizmo. I'm going to press side view. Well, actually, first I'm going to select the things that I want to adjust, which is that loop and this loop. Yeah, I pressed, when you select only one vertex, you can also select the all the vertices that are connected to it in a loop by pressing Alt at the same time. So if I Alt click, hello, Alt click, yeah, you can see it selects all the vertices around. If I do the same thing, Alt click here on the other side, yes, does that. And then, you know what, I should do this with edges instead of vertices. So I select all the edges around, yeah, and we should now have, yeah, from the bottom is a bit more visible. The selected edges are in orange. So now all my, let's say, surrounding shape, all the lines around are actually selected. And what I can do is, if I go to side view, I can grab those with proportional editing enabled. I'm going to do this so that you can see it a little better. So if I grab those up and I have proportional editing, you know, observe how as I change the ratio of the proportional editing, the cavity inside of this bowl that I'm modeling is changing. You see that? I'll repeat that again. So all I'm doing is just, I selected the edges around, I mean edge mode, right? I selected the edges around. I'll do that from scratch again. So I selected the edges around by first going here to edge mode, then I press Alt and I click on one edge, and with Alt it means that it will try to select all the edges that are connected to that. Because I added these loop cuts later, that means that oh shit, I have to press Shift Alt so that it keeps adding to the selection there and here as well, right? So now the outer edges of my shape are selected. If I now just let's disable proportional editing so that you see what happens here. If I now use grab for grabbing and I pull it up, as you can see, I'm just basically just moving the, whoops, hello, yes, I'm just basically moving the outer edges, but nothing else is moving. If I enable the proportional editing tool and I again grab my outer edges, you see how everything that is inside of the circle of influence gets affected. You see that? Right, and now we have it's kind of getting there, right? It's some kind of shape that we can kind of use. I'm gonna just grab that bit, pull it up a little bit, and as I do that with different edges and pull it up a little bit, I'm gonna just try and influence. Whoops, I'm gonna do that again from the side and grab that. Yeah, I can also rotate that a little bit so that I am adding slight irregularities to this whole thing, and that will make it look a little bit more natural. Again, I select all the edges around and I move them up on the z-axis only just a little bit, and we're getting this bowl shape thing already. Alright, now it's still kind of low poly, this, but that's totally fine. We can subdivide this. There's a quick trick to when you are in modeling mode. It is to subdivide, which is to press Control 5 on this thing, and this will subdivide things further, and then it will give us more geometry. And if we then set shade to smooth, it will give us a pretty smooth looking petal right there. I don't really like how these turned out. I'm gonna go back again to top view, select viewpoint top. I'm going to kind of, I don't really like how pointy that thing is, so I'm gonna go to vertex mode and I'm gonna try and adjust that a little bit. I'm gonna disable, no, actually I'm gonna enable that over again and grab, but reduce the influence a bit. Yeah, so yeah, so that we get a bit more of an organic shape there. I'm being a bit anal about this now, so I'm just gonna stop it. And right, I'll select the borders back again. I'm still gonna move them up a little bit. I press G for grab, Z so that it extrudes only in one axis, and I'm gonna increase the area of influence so that the entire petal is kind of a bit more concave, and that's kind of it. That's a bit what I was after. So it's now a little bit more organic and yeah, more looking like a petal. I'm gonna stop fucking around with this because of course, perfection is unattainable, and we actually don't need perfection for this tutorial. We just need to understand how to kind of make shapes. Now, one thing about this shape now is that it only it doesn't have a thickness. Like, so if we export this to a game engine, it's gonna have a bit of trouble when applying materials and casting shadows and doing things like that. So we're gonna give it a bit of thickness here, and for that we're gonna use a modifier. So over here we have in the wrench tool, blue wrench, we have the modifiers list. And over here we have a modifier called Solidify. What Solidify does is, makes whatever shape you give it into a solid. Surprise, surprise. Here the thickness is quite big. It's in fact huge. This thickness is measured in meters, as you can see. So actually we just need, so that's what, a centimeter, that would be 1 millimeter, and that would be 0.5 millimeter, which is also kind of, it's actually quite thick, but yeah, for our purpose it will serve us fine. That's a bit much, in fact. No, I'm gonna do that. Let's see, 50. Actually, that's fine. Yeah, and this is our petal. That's fine now. Shade smooth. Make sure that shade smooth is enabled before you export it, and you have your petal shape. That's the basic model, but this model does not yet have a texture or a material. If I render with material, you see that it kind of renders as white, and this doesn't have a light either, so it's kind of bland at the moment. One thing that we can do is to go to UV editing and add the texture of the petal. So I already added it by dragging it, so it should be available here in the list of images. That's where it is. And now with this selected, if I go to edit mode and press A twice, once, to select all the vertices, and I go here to UV unwrap, you see how that shape has been unwrapped in my texture. And now basically I'm going to select everything. I'm going to rotate it by pressing R, rotate it. I'm going to try and match, and then press S to sorry. I'm going to scale it, grab it back again, and yeah, well, it's not perfect, but we could basically adjust this to kind of match that shape. What UV mapping does, what this UV unwrap does, is it tries to kind of it looks at the texture, the original image, as if it was gift wrap, and it tries to wrap your object with that texture, and it tries to match the edges. You'll see what I mean by that now when I apply here. So first, before I can see the results of that operation, first I have to add a material to this thing, because this object does not yet have a material. So I'm going to give it a material. I come here to the materials tab, I create a new material, and the material by default will be white. I can change the base color, make it a pink if I like, whatever. Well, in fact, I don't want it pink. I want it white. RGB. I'm gonna set everything to, yeah, I want that white. There was a way to just change the color in the editor. Viewport display color pink. Okay, I'm now getting distracted. It's pointless, this what I'm doing now. That makes sense for more complex scenes. For that, I just have one object here, so I don't need a viewport color or anything. I still have my object. It has a white basis, a white material. So what I'm trying to do is to add this kind of gift wrap texture to that material. So what I'll do is I go here to boom, shading, and shading. So these nodes that you see here, they correspond to the material editor of whatever material is currently active. The material that is currently active is that one, it's the rose petal material. And what I basically want is to add a texture to this material. So I go here to, in my node editor, I go here to add texture, and here is image texture. And this adds a new node, as you can see. All I do is select the image. Here, if I click in new, it would create a new image, but that's not what I want. What I want is to select an image that is already part of my scene. And in this case, is this petal that we see pre-visualized there. And now this node that I have here, as you can see, it contains the PNG that I loaded before. So I connect the color with the base color of my material, and now we have a petal looking thing there. And yeah, sorry to disappoint you, but that's all there is to it. There is nothing more to it than this. My scene doesn't have any lights, so that's why it appears a little bit dark, but I actually don't really want to add lights before I send this to Lens Studio. Perhaps one thing that I'll do is to just delete my original reference image because I don't really need it anymore. It will keep it will keep the image as in the scene, but as it's used by the material. It's no longer an object in the scene, and that's it. That's my petal. I'm gonna save this as petal 3.blend as my shape, and I'm also gonna export it now that I'm here to FBX so that it can be read by Lens Studio. And that's it. I think I'll stop there. Okay, I just screwed again the Blender window in my stream. Alright, I think this is it for this tutorial. This is probably as long a tutorial as I'm ever gonna make on anything, but you saw now the modeling process from beginning to end, how to model something, like in this case, kind of tiny but detailed. And when you work on a bunch of these assets, and you can progressively add nice little details to your filters. So I hope this was useful to you, and I'll cut it off here. Thanks.